Hey guys, welcome back to my channel if you guys are new here. Hi, my name is Sydney and today's video is going to be about single shadows again. I did a single shadow video a couple of weeks ago and you guys seemed to really enjoy it and I had so much fun curating it. If you guys didn't catch that video, I curated 4 singles palettes for spring. I did varying color stories and today well actually it was last night, let's be real. Last night I was sitting down and I was looking at my single shadows and I'm like, you know what? I want to create another single shadow video. So I was racking my brain thinking what I could create, and so I came up with the idea of creating a spring capsule collection. So I feel like I've heard the term capsule collection, capsule wardrobe thrown around here and there. In my basic understanding of it is a small curated collection of things or items for a specific season. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be for a season, but I made mine for a season. And so I dug through my single shadows and I was honestly not even thinking about creating a palette this big. It's just kind of how it ended up. But I was like, you know what? I think it would be really fun to create a curated capsule collection of my single shadows for spring. I thought it would be something fun that you guys could do at home as well as you watch this video if you want. But throughout this video, I want to share some swatches, some other little palettes that I created within this larger palette, and kind of my thoughts on why I picked the colors that I did. So without further ado, let's hop into it. So when I sat down to create this palette last night, I didn't film it this time because I wasn't really even sure if I was going to be able to create a palette that I felt was unique and different enough than the other palettes that I created to even make a video on. But I feel like this one is pretty different. If you guys didn't watch that other video, the other palettes that I created were a little bit murkier. I mean, not that this is an overly bright palette, but it showcases some of the murkier tones of spring, some of the more muted tones. This one I feel like still reflects some of that, especially with some of these grungy purples down here, but it reflects more of the growth in spring, more of the spring that I'm seeing outside my window right now versus what I was seeing a couple of weeks ago. So I thought that would be a fun little twist on this little collection. So I want to talk a little bit about the design of this palette. So I'm going to scooch this palette in a little bit closer for you guys. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but I actually curated this palette into little quads. So each little 4 single shadows, I kind of curated to be a little bit of a quad. When we get into swatches, I'm going to kind of take out and showcase some of my favorite quads that I created, but I just wanted to show you guys that. That was actually really fun and a really interesting way for me to build a palette. Normally when I build my singles palettes, I just get some inspiration off Instagram because I don't consider myself to be super talented with creating color stories. But building little quads was a really fun, less overwhelming way to curate a single shadow palette. So if you guys are looking for ways to kind of gain some inspiration without directly stealing, well, not stealing, but directly looking off someone else's idea, this might be a fun way to do it. But I thought another reason why it might be fun to curate this into little quads or little 6-sums is that I can just take that little quad or 6-sum out of this palette, and if, let's say I'm going somewhere for the weekend, because I mean life has to go back to normal at some point, right? But let's say I'm going somewhere or I'm looking for a really specific look, I can pop those shadows out and it's a little bit less overwhelming to work with those than it is to work with this entire color story. So in total, I chose 21 shadows for my little capsule collection. I thought that was a pretty good number. I wasn't really even settling on a number. I was actually hoping to make this a little bit smaller and have it fit in a ColourPop palette rather than a Shop Miss A large palette. But I am so happy with the result, so I'm not going to blabber on any further. Let's hop into the breakdown of each shade in this palette and some swatches. Alright guys, so for swatches, I'm just going to break this down row by row. I'm going to swatch a couple of shadows at a time just for expediency's sake, because there are a lot of shadows in this palette, and the last time I did all those swatching, the video was super long, and B, it took me 500 years to edit it, so I want to make this video as expedient as I can for you guys and also for myself. So starting off in the first row, the first shade we have is Io from Terra Moves. This is one of their new pastel chameleons. It's a really pretty kind of vibrant yellowy shade. Next up we have Sydney Grace Siren Call, which is a beautiful deep kind of hunter green shade. Then we have Shroud Cosmetics Magnetism, which is a gorgeous deep kind of tealy green shimmery shade. Then we have the shade Asteria from Divina, which is the most beautiful like green pinky duochrome. I feel like this is just the embodiment of spring. It is so beautiful. Then we have Cleona Reflectance, which is a beautiful soft shifty like mint to pink shade. This is a beautiful inner corner highlight or brow bone highlight. Then we have Divina Asteria, which I would describe as a mid-toned soft lilac. And then finally we have ColourPop Lucid, which I depotted from their Chasing Rainbows palette. It's like a murky bluish purpley shade. Moving on to the second row, we have Terra Moon's Callisto, which is another one of their pastel chameleons. I just did a video on those, so I can link it down below if you guys want to learn a little bit more about those shadows. Then we have Sydney Grace Honeydew, which is like a mid-tone, cool tone green. Then we have Terra Moon's Mood Ring, which is a beautiful, beautiful blue-green multi-chrome. I was so excited to put this one in here. It plays a huge part in one of the quads that I created, and I cannot wait to create a look with that. Then we have Sydney Grace Calmeria, I think it's called. It's like a beautiful, soft, grassy green shade. Then we have Lethal Cosmetics Unity, Sydney Grace The Greatest Gift, and Looksy Beauty Raisin Hell. Moving on to the third row, we're starting off with a Sydney Grace shade called Granny Smith. This is a beautiful kind of like, that one's more of a grassy green, not some, the last one was not really a grassy green that I said. Next up, we have Terra Moon's Powdered Sugar. Then we have Sydney Grace hashtag It's a Boy. Next up, we have Lethal Cosmetics Eden, which is a beautiful kind of deep olivey green. Then we have another multi-chrome from Sydney Grace, and it's called Twisted Shifter. This one I feel like is also the embodiment of spring. Maybe this one's a little bit more springy. It's like purple and green and like bronzy tones in there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Then we have Cleona Wildberry, and then finally another Cleona shadow. This one's one of their pastel multi-chromes, and it's the shade Turret. Okay, so now that you guys have gotten an overall feel for the shades that are in this palette, I did want to shout out a few key players that I threw into this palette. So as I said, I felt like the multi-chromes added something really special to this palette, and I was kind of inspired to throw them in here because they're so transformative and they're so shifty and different, and whatever angle you see them at, you get a different shade out of them. And I thought that was kind of reminiscent of like things transforming and blooming in spring. That's a little more symbolic than I was originally thinking of going with this palette, but I just thought these were two really, really fun shades to throw in. I also thought the shade The Greatest Gift from Sydney Grace would be an excellent addition to this palette because it's like such a weird shade. It's like a soft purple that shifts a little bit green, and I feel like that is so reminiscent of a lot of the beautiful flowers and trees and everything that is blooming right now. Those swatches make my heart happy. And then one of the other key shimmery shade players in this game, in this palette, was the shade right here from Davina. This is Asteria. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see the shift on camera. It looks green right here, but when I look over at it from this angle, it looks purple. It is the most magical shade. Oh my goodness. I'm so in love with it. Holy moly. I feel like I really took some of these shimmery shades and kind of just built quads around them. Just building quads around the matte shades. The shimmery shades really are the stars of this palette for me. I mean, they're always the stars of every palette for me, let's be honest. But there are a couple of matte shades that I just absolutely love that I wanted to give a quick little shout out to. This one from Sydney Grace, I think it's called Calmeria, is such a beautiful, unique, like light sage green. It is absolutely stunning. And I also thought this purple from Davina, I think it's called Kaya, was also really, really gorgeous. I wanted just some fresh tones in this palette, but I didn't really want to go super pastel because I feel like we've seen so many pastels lately, and so I thought I would switch it up with some just softer mid-tone shades. So now I want to specifically show off a few of the quads that I curated within this palette. As I said, pretty much every foursome of shadows that's right next to each other, I kind of made it so it would be a working quad. So a working quad for me, I guess I should go in and explain what that truly is. I'll give you an example with this first palette. Usually it's a light mid-tone shade to throw in my crease, a darker shade to deepen up the outer corner, and then two kind of fun shades. Sometimes they're inner corner shades, sometimes it's a lighter shimmery shade and a deeper shimmery shade. This one I really went for the purple vibe, and I wanted to put some purple into this palette because I feel like with some of my palettes that I created in my previous singles video, I went for a very earthy toned spring look, and I totally see that outside. That's very reminiscent of spring to me still, but I feel like at the point we're at in spring now, at least where I live, things are starting to get a little bit of color, and purple's like that perfect balance between like neutrals and color, you know? I feel like almost in my head like purple is almost a neutral shadow. Maybe that's just because I'm so into color right now, but this is one of the little palettes that I created. In this palette we have Sydney Grace The Greatest Gift, Cleona Wildberry, Lethal Cosmetics Unity, and Sydney Grace Twisted Shifter. This one is probably about the most purple quad I have in this palette. I just love how these tones play together, and I thought the beautiful multi-chrome would pair really nicely with these other purple tones. So this next quad is mostly green with a little pop of purple. I think green and purple make a really, really beautiful color combo. So in this palette, I included the shades Davina Asteria, Cleona Reflectance, Sydney Grace Calmeria, and Lethal Cosmetics Unity. I think that these would create such a pretty look. This look might be a little bit smokier than the last one. Well, the last one could have been pretty smoky too. But I thought this would create such a fresh, pretty spring eye. I know a couple of you requested that I do tutorials with my singles palettes that I've created on my channel. I think that I would rather keep those over on my Instagram. I do a lot more looks, some pictorials, and mini little tutorials over there, so I will pop that on the screen right here. If you're not following me, you definitely should, but maybe I can work these into like a get ready with me or something like that. But I think that these singles videos would just be far too long if I included tutorials in here as well. But here is the second little quad I wanted to showcase. Okay, the next quad I wanted to showcase is much more green. It has a little pop of blue in there too. I feel like this one was the one that I curated around making it easier to use that multi-chrome. Pure multi-chromes like this one can be a little bit harder to work with because they have a very deep base, so they don't always blend out nicely into like mid-tone shades. I tend to struggle with that, so in this quad I included a deep matte blue along with the multi-chrome and a nice little green to kind of blend through the crease. This is a very like earthy quad, not in like neutral earthy tones, but like in the colors of the earth itself, like blue and green. And then I also included a beautiful bright highlighting shade. So the shades in this quad are Sydney Grace Honeydew, Tara Moon's Mood Ring, Tara Moon's Powdered Sugar, and then it's Sydney Grace hashtag It's a Boy. And I feel like this is a very well-rounded quad. It's a smoky quad, but it's a well-rounded quad. Alright you guys, so I think that's actually going to wrap up this video on my spring singles capsule collection for this year. I would absolutely love to continue to do this for the next couple of seasons this year, maybe even into next year if I feel like I'm creating something that's different enough to present to you guys each season. I definitely want to do at least one other singles curated palette season thing for summer, like the last video that I did. I had an idea to kind of curate a couple of palettes around like some of my favorite summer activities, so I think that could be a fun way for you guys to get to know me a little bit better and to share some really beautiful eyeshadow combos, which is always my goal. But that's gonna wrap it up today. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you guys want to watch some other single shadow content on my channel, as I said, I will link it down below. It's my goal to hit my watch hour requirement to become monetized in the next several months. I work really hard on my channel, and I recently hit 1,000 subscribers, and that is just the next milestone I need to hit to be monetized. So if you guys would want to binge watch a couple of my videos or a couple of my playlists, I would sincerely appreciate it. But I'm gonna stop blabbering on today. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. I thought I was gonna call it the comment box below. Comic box? I obviously need to stop filming. I can't talk anymore. Leave me a comment below letting me know what your favorite way to curate your singles is. Do you like to go on Instagram to look up different palettes for inspiration? Do you just curate them by color? I would love to chat about it down below, but that's gonna wrap it up today, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!